You are now tuning in to the Bodybuilding Lifestyle Podcast, the number one source for unfiltered truth in bodybuilding with your host, Elon Muscular. The Bodybuilding Lifestyle Podcast is sponsored by Elon Muscular Private Coaching. There's a huge issue with online coaching today. Cookie cutter plans, unattentive coaches, and an industry saturated with misinformation. If you're looking for a bodybuilding coach that will be on your ass about getting results and make sure you tick all the boxes every day with daily check-ins, unlimited text access, and quarterly video consults and progress reports, then Elon Muscular Coaching is for you. All the guys on Team Muscular are my personal friends, and I'm proud to build a relationship with every client in order to best hold them accountable to their goals. If this sounds interesting to you, reach out to me to book a free discovery call to see if coaching is right for you. Now let's get right into the episode. What is up, guys, and welcome to episode 12 of the Bodybuilding Lifestyle Podcast. I'm here with Akaash Pardesi, Akaash Aesthetics. I've been following Akaash for a long time. He is an original member of the Enhanced Athlete team, and he's had a great physique for years. The guy's always ripped. The guy's always in shape. I honestly couldn't find a bad picture of him. So I want to ask him first about his bodybuilding, how he does it, how he, has had so much success with it in the past. And then we can get into what he's doing today, which is more like entrepreneur coaching and life coaching. So I think this is a perfect guest for the Bodybuilding Lifestyle Podcast because the guy really has experience on both ends of the spectrum. So welcome, Akaash.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. It's a lovely, lovely introduction. I'm super stoked to be here. Just having a good time, man. Can't wait to chat.
Cool. So I want to start off with your bodybuilding journey. Could you take us back to like 2015, 16 when you first got involved with Enhanced Athlete? I know you were doing men's physique competitions. Did you ever get your pro card or how far did you go in terms of the competitive side of bodybuilding?
Sure, 100%. So yeah, 2015 is when I started competing in bodybuilding, but I had been bodybuilding probably since, back in, let me see here, maybe 2010 or so, probably since I was 15 years old, right? So I played football through high school. I would be weight training, with the football team, going on the padded practices. And I noticed that in high school, I always had this vision of trying to create this aesthetics. Big Dragon Ball Z fan, anime. I don't know if any of the listeners, know Dragon Ball Z and whatnot. Just all the characters are super ripped. And as a little kid, I'm like, hey, I want to look like that too. And I figured out bodybuilding as a vehicle for that. So I had always been building my body since, freshman year in high school, consistently, like after practice, right? You're doing power movements and stuff with the football team. I would go to the gym and do my isolation movements to make sure I'm like, sculpting properly and creating my vision, right? So fast forward out of high school, it's kind of funny. I kind of stumbled into bodybuilding in the competing just because I wanted to take my physique to a next level. So I started working with bodybuilding coaches. I noticed that I was like stalling out within my own knowledge and whatever, because I was, reading and digesting a ton of information, YouTube, Google articles, all the, old school Scott Herman fitness. I remember I learned a ton from him, watching the Hodge twins, Chris Jones, like all these physiques of greatness back in the day, OG YouTube channels for bodybuilding. And I'm just the type of personality, I just wanted more growth, right? I noticed that I needed to find a mentor, someone that was 5 or 10 years ahead of me in this physique development journey that I was on. And that so happened to be a competition prep coach. Ended up doing my first show in 2015. I took first and overall in the novice. And then I believe I had third call outs, I think, in the open first show. It's a pretty stacked show. It was the Governor's Cup here in Sacramento. That was back in 2015. But that's what really lit the competitive nature in me on fire. It was weird. I had like the novice overall trophy, in novice, but then in the open, I was like third call out. So I was like, that doesn't sit too good with my ego, right? So that's how I got into competing, and that's kind of what triggered me in getting into shows. I did not attain my pro card. I ended up competing pretty consistently all through 2015 and 16 to the USA's. So, I ended up, fast forward in 20 2015, at the end of 2015, I had placed first in my class because I was very, had a, fire under me to do really well and show up in the best way that I could. And I took first in my class, qualified for the USAs. And yeah, just took a short off season. And this is in 2015. And then 2016, I pretty much went into prep for the USAs. That was just what a coach had recommended for me. And it seemed like a pretty prestigious show. I was like, this seems cool. Prepped for that. And USAs, that was what, July. So I did about a 3-month prep, and I ended up placing fourth in the Open at the USAs. So fourth out of like a class of about 34 guys. So it's a pretty high placing. I felt like it was a really stacked show. I felt like I was right there for my pro card. But then, to be honest with you, brother, after that show, I had put all my eggs in that basket for that show. I kind of went into a little bit of like a lull in my competitive nature after coming so close and making such a big, gain in, kind of maybe a year and a half, just under 2 years of competing. That I never quite, well, takes me into another chapter of life. But that's as far as I went in my competitive career, fourth at the USAs. Didn't get my pro card, but I looked cool, so I was happy with it.
So around that time, I know that you were one of the kind of the first guys that I saw when I first got into Enhanced Athlete, like around that time, on Tony's original channel and stuff like that. And I always thought that you had a great physique, just the symmetry and the way that everything kind of flowed together. I'm curious, what did the cycles look like at the time? Were you using the Enhanced Athlete SARMs mostly, or was it like what did it really look like at that time when you were in men's physique back in the day?
So, the cycles were nothing crazy, believe it or not. At this moment of time, I was using Enhanced Athlete SARMs, but this was when my knowledge this is where more I was, experimenting with these things on the off season, because this is very new, it's cutting edge, as Enhanced Athlete kind of pioneered the SARMs into the mainstream of the bodybuilding market. So at that time, I was also unsure. For one, my own knowledge at that point of competing 2015, 2016, I had at that point just gotten to having a pretty good understanding of, typical gear protocols and whatnot. And because every compound is going to react differently in your body, depending on the type of body that you have, your genetics, they react different person to person. So, I didn't have the time actually in my off season really to test these things how I wanted to, versus just going what I knew would get me, the look that I needed. And, not standard stuff, I would say like maybe, I'll just use the USA's prep as a quick example, right? I probably started my cycle 20 weeks out. It was like 25 milligrams of D-ball as a kickstart, and test E. Like that was it, right? Test E and EQ. Right. So as you know, like test E and EQ, test E will probably kick in like 2-3 weeks. EQ really does take that 3-4 weeks to build up in your body. Had the D-ball as a quick start. I think I jumped it to like 50 milligrams after a couple of weeks. I was always a big advocate as less is more, just made sense to me. Of course, it helped, having beautiful advice just readily available, just, amazing advice just with, Tony and Coach Trevor, as well as just being around that community. Right. If I didn't know something, I would know someone who does know. So that would be like the cycle. And then, maybe 8 weeks out, 8 weeks out, I would add in the Anabar Winstrol, Mastron, cut the EQ out, probably add some Tren acetate, again, maybe just half a cc, 3 times a week, nothing crazy. Like I'm really big on just smaller dosages. But then, doing something like that 10 weeks out and just letting the diet really take care of it, man. Mastron, in the beginning. So the protocols were really, I would say the protocols were pretty standard as long as you have a good understanding on, how gear works in the body and how your body reacts to it. I would say what really like set me apart was my thought process on the entire, I'll use the Enhanced Athlete word, anabolic matrix. And especially in regards to what we do in the post cycle. I think this is what really allowed my physique to mature very quickly and, create aesthetics in a well-balanced physique very, very quickly. Because I took very of an architect-like approach on my body, and I would I would be very analytical with how I put together my training routines. So I would notice my chest like grows like great chest genetics. I just always had a great chest. I would do chest like once every 2 weeks, believe it or not. It would just always be great. And my triceps and rear delts and my brachialis and at that time I remember my back thickness and width needed some more time. So I would literally train like back, tries, and I would train my weak points essentially 3 times a week. And I would train them with different training styles. So actually I would accredit most of my like aesthetics in a short amount of time to just how I thought about training as it relates to my genetic composition, like what muscles grew faster that I identified and which muscles took more time. And then you take that type of approach, training approach, you put that with proper supplementation. When I say proper, what I'm talking about is like just being smart about it, right? Like taking things like YK11, it's a myostatin inhibitor, right? On the days where I would be training my weak body parts, because the weak body parts have a higher concentration of myostatin. For any of the listeners that don't know, myostatin is basically like a governor. If you think about like a car, it has like a rev limit on your car. Like you can maybe your car can go 140, but it'll just only accelerate to 110. There's a governor there. The muscles have the same thing, and that governor is going to be dependent upon that your genetic structure from your lineage and where your ancestors came from and whatnot. I'm Indian, so we did a lot of farming, a lot of pushing wheelbarrow stuff, right? So chest came with that, right? So but triceps, we did a lot of farming, right? So like biceps were always on point, but my triceps were just like flat. It took me forever to get like that long head developed. It used to just be like flat, and it would drive me insane. I was like, oh man, typical bodybuilding aesthetics, like trying to go for all that, right? But so, what I'm saying here, guys, is essentially you really want to think about your body composition, like what areas need more time and attention, and how you want to attack that, right? I would hit the long head of my tricep with like an overhead dumbbell extension one day. Sometimes I'll do like a resistance band, sometimes I'll be doing like a close grip bench, usually utilizing like negatives. And I would rotate between all these different training styles. So, perhaps, you might need to increase your, knowledge or index on all these different workouts and stuff like that, right? To really put those together. I think that's going to do you more good and be more effective than, figuring out the most optimal, cycle per se. It's my opinion. Secondly, I understood on the post cycle, everyone, in my opinion, seems to do this thing way wrong. Like they'll just go and enhance their body, just to put some numbers to it. Let's say your natural testosterone will be at like a level 10, and then you go put yourself artificially at level 50. Now you basically have potential to create like, I'm just using simple numbers here, like a level 50 amount of muscle on your body. But even if you post cycle properly and you take everything correctly, and again, correctly is going to be relative to the cycle you ran, but even if you do your proper PCT, when you come off cycle, your natural test is only going to support that like level 10, even if you did everything right. So the body's going to be like, well, hey, we don't have the fuel to support this level of muscle mass, right? So when I saw that, there's like literally no way to combat that. Even if like I tried everything, eating like an abundance of food, training twice a day, like even if you're doing everything perfect, it's so hard to maintain gains. You're just fighting to just stay where you're at. Again, this is if you have a more matured physique, right? Like if you've already been training for years, and at this time I already had like 35 pounds of muscle on my frame. So I was already kind of at that natural threshold, right? If you're not at the natural threshold, then this may not apply. But what I want to really stress is I thought about like, how do I tackle this post-cycle thing? Because I noticed all these competitors and other people, they were taking 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. They'd make a lot of gains in their cycle, and then their post-cycle, they would just take sometimes 5 steps back, some not even 3 steps back, 5 steps back sometimes. And I noticed that happening, and I was like, okay, well, I thought about it logically. I was like, shouldn't I take something to give my body some help while I'm getting back to homeostasis from a testosterone estrogen balance kind of standpoint, right? So I'm like, okay, if you're not PCT properly, you want to give yourself, a number of months off. It's going to depend on how long you were on. So in that time, doesn't it make sense to take like some growth hormone or something? You know what I mean? Like I noticed a lot of people just go cold turkey, or excuse me, not cold turkey, but they do a proper PCT, and then that's it. They just keep working out, and obviously psychologically, right now you're also noticing your performance go lower. This can really mess with you in your head, especially if you're not as mature as a bodybuilder or as a competitor, right? Especially if you're younger. Right now, like that discipline to stay on your diet and eat healthy food starts going away because you start looking shittier already. And then you're like, well, fuck it, it's off season mode. I guess I will eat this burrito now, right? So it can go, you can go backwards really fast. And then, I noticed a lot of people get caught in that rut, and it happened to me actually back in 2015 in my first show. And then when I didn't want to experience that again. So, I just thought about it logically back to the anabolic matrix. If you just use a different anabolic pathway, whether it be growth hormone, whether it be insulin, whether it be a little bit of insulin and growth hormone, or some peptides, while you're on your post cycle, I was able to still continue to make gains throughout my post cycle time. So I was still able to work on my weak points. I was still able to, maintain a clear state of mind, because psychologically, when your performance when you're trying even harder than when you were on cycle, and you're noticing your performance still, be less than when you were on cycle, that just fucks with you in your head, right? So I was bypassing that. So I was feeling a ton better. When you're feeling better, your cortisol is low, you're able to gain more muscle, burn more fat, maintain a better physique. This translates to a whole bunch of other, bodybuilding opportunities. I'm staying in shape year round. You get more, clout in the bodybuilding world for that, being able to maintain a high level physique year round. This allowed me to, when I wasn't competing, build my fitness coaching business, go into other entrepreneurial ventures. We were doing a lot of traveling, going around with the company and whatnot, and doing different stuff there. And, that's what kind of took me into like, more of the business route, is when I started discovering that kind of stuff. But yeah, just to like quick wrap up, essentially what you want to do, guys, is always take into account what you're doing on your post cycle. Take some sort of anabolic pathway. I don't recommend insulin, especially if you're in UB. I don't think it's even needed, but just a little bit of growth goes a long way. Just a little bit of growth hormone, good quality at least.
How much are we talking? And are we talking pharma growth, and or
do
you think that generics could be okay? And what kind of IUs are we talking?
Thank you. That's a phenomenal question. Appreciate that. So if it's real pharmaceutical growth, I'm talking maybe like half an IU to 1 IU, maybe 2 IUs. Like you're talking about these Pfizer pens that come in like 16 IU pens. They're pretty expensive unless you have like a really good connection or know someone that has like a prescription or something like that. Otherwise, with a high quality pharmaceutical grade, and again, like, that's just something, it all just depends on where you're getting it sourced from, right? It just depends on the quality of wherever it's coming from, essentially. A lot of people look at like what color the top is. I'm like, listen, none of that really matters if the quality of whatever top color you like is still shit. So that's got to be first and foremost. Yeah, it really does. I see a lot of people like, whoa, are these red tops or black tops? I'm like, do you even know what red top is?
It's like you just changed the top.
The top.
I don't.
Yeah,
understand.
let me just tell you guys. No, the people in China, I know, because like, like we have the context, like they just changed the top. It's the same growth hormone, like its color. It's just because consumers, like they associate the color with some sort of better generic. So anyway, I always like to just call it how it is, right? So with good generic growth hormone, 2 to 4 IUs, on the higher side, 8 IUs, right? And then also, the half-life on generic is 4 hours, right? So you want to, morning, nighttime, pre and post workout are the ideal times. It can get a little tedious doing that 4 times a day, but at least like a morning, night, 2 IUs. That in 2 IUs is like great. You get a whole bunch of sleep benefits, great for anti-aging, clears up your skin, hair, skin, nails is great on that. There's like literally no negative side effects unless you have like, cancer or a tumor. Of course, right, growth hormone is going to grow everything, right? So of course, be smart. If you don't have cancer or a tumor, like, stay away from it. But otherwise, it's phenomenal for anti-aging, really good for your health, actually. I use it now for biohacking, purposes, and yeah. So
I think that society on a whole is completely sleeping on growth hormone. When I started to and only this year did I really start to experiment with growth hormone. Well, I guess last year now, and it is so really, really changes the game a lot. Like it just, and I know that I'm Russian. My family's from Russia, so I speak Russian as well. And actually, in Russia, growth hormone is legal, and they sell it in the pharmacy, and anybody can buy it. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of actual great content on YouTube, on Russian YouTube, about growth hormone. A lot of studies and stuff like that. And it's very common that people run it solo over there, and they get really good results. So I think that what you're saying is really interesting. But I think most people avoid running the growth hormone solo or in PCT because it's expensive and they want it to be with the
Yeah.
anabolics to get everything at once. But then, like you're saying, they go on this roller coaster where now you had growth hormone in and you had anabolics in, and now you have nothing in. So you shrink down on multiple different levels. It might make more sense to take a more sustainable approach long term. And I think, I mean, it shows in your physique. Like I said, I mean, I think that you really answered the question that I asked very well, because what I always thought looking at you is, how is this guy always in shape? And because usually people go through, you know, a bulking and then a cutting, and they look soft for most of the year, but you seem to always be hard and always be in good condition. And it makes sense that on your off time you were using other things to help you maintain your gains. So I guess that brings me to my next question. So when you were competing, sounds like the cycle was, you know, pretty standard stuff, test and EQ, moving down to trend mast and anavar. That's really standard, especially for men's physique. But now that you don't compete anymore and you're into this more like biohacking lifestyle sort of aspect,
Yeah.
which is kind of what I'm trying to also talk about. Like, how do you approach it now? Because obviously you're still, you know, utilizing these things in some manner, but how do you make sure that you use it in a healthy, sustainable way so that you can stay looking good without having to have those peaks and valleys?
Phenomenal question. Yeah. So transitioning to the biohacking approach, right? How do I use supplementation to, enhance the quality of life, but still stay healthy, right? So I think number one is doing consistent blood work. I can't tell you how many people don't get their blood work done and don't have it consistently, and just it's been years and stuff, right? And it's kind of scary because not everything just shows up as like, you can have elevated liver enzymes or high cholesterol without having any side effects of these things, right? And then you go and take something like testosterone, and even the testosterone in the relative at a low dosage, or even at testosterone replacement dosage, is pretty clean, pretty healthy for the body. But if you have a horrible diet and your cholesterol's high, and maybe let's tack on like some genetic tendencies towards some sort of cholesterol disease or fatty liver diseases and whatnot, then that can be an issue, right? And you would just never know if you just never did your blood work. So I think just doing blood work at least twice a year minimum, once every 6 months, is where people go wrong, and just not doing that, right? It keeps you up to date with your body. And then two, I just don't, I'm not going to use anything. I just don't use anything like trend. I don't do any of these things. I think when you're competing, it makes sense, right? You always want to think like, what is the intention behind what I'm doing here, right? Like, so at this point in my life, I'm not really taking gear much. Even if I have to like get ready for, like, if I'm doing some sort of a shoot of some kind, or for whatever reason, if I want to look extra crispy, right? I just take like a SARM, honestly, like a light SARM, maybe like an S23 Rad 140 blend, right? And I feel so much better. I feel so much healthier. It's an injectable SARM, right? So I'm not, again, I'm bypassing the liver and kidneys. And other than that, I'm just taking a very small amount of testosterone, like 300 milligrams a week, 250 to 300 milligrams a week, and growth hormone here and there. Like, I'll just do like couple weeks on, couple weeks off, here and there. More often than not, just before bed on the days where I eat a lot of food at nighttime or something like that, right? And then honestly, that's really all I do. Just a lot of people get kind of shocked, like, you only take tests pretty much, and I'm like, yeah, but like, I've also been training like 10 years, and it's consistently something that's part of my day, right? So the muscle that I have on my body, it's been there for a long time. So like, muscle changes as it matures, your physique changes as it matures, your body changes as it matures. Like, how food reacts with you, how training reacts with you, how just your overall look of the body, how it changes the older you get, and the more, as long as you're staying consistent, right? If you're doing this whole taking a couple months off and then starting back up, and I'm doing my PCT, I didn't work out for 2 months, and now I'm starting another cycle thing, I'm getting back to it, then you won't experience this, what I'm talking about. But if you're being consistent, you'll notice after about the 5, and this is subjective, this can increase or decrease depending on your level of focus and how many hours you want to dedicate to this, not just training, but increasing your knowledge, right? Like understanding the real strategies and tactics behind the stuff, the actual thinking that goes into it, right? So about 5 to 8 years, I think, is about the sweet spot to where you can achieve some, what I would call physique mastery, right? To where you're kind of just stuck like this. Like no matter what you do, what you eat, like you might get a little bit bloated, but like, I don't know, I just always have had abs, and I'm Indian, dude. We have fucked genetics. Like I come from like if you scroll all the way back on my Instagram, I have older pictures, like really fucked up genetics. I kid you not, but I started when I was like 15 playing football. I was very, very disciplined. I did the bodybuilding split after practice, making sure I'm getting the isolation movements in. And I kid you not, I didn't miss a single day in the gym for like 3 years. I think for about 1,000 days, I didn't miss that one day whether I got sick. Now, I'm not saying it was a great workout every day, but I mean, I took my physical body to the gym, right? That's like the kind of mentality you want to have, that level of dedication. That's what's going to get you there quickly, right? That'll get you there quickly, right? And I took rest days, of course, like 2 days off, but I would like force myself to take the rest day, right? So so to answer your question, consistently doing blood work, and then not running harsh compounds and staying away from orals. Like there's really no need if you're coming at it from a lifestyle health and longevity approach. If it's from a health and longevity approach, you wouldn't want to take any orals. You wouldn't want to run tren or nandrolones and stuff like that, things that are going to be more on the toxic side, right? So just what are you trying to do here? What's your intention? What's your goals?
I think that completely makes sense. And I think that what you said is really a high level thing that honestly, when I was younger, I would hear people say this and it would complete like what you're saying about muscle maturity and time training and really the investment that it takes and how your body changes the longer you've been training. And what I've seen too is not just the training, but how long you've been on a consistent diet, like on a consistent bodybuilding, like high carb, moderate protein, low fat, or whatever your approach is in terms of the macros, but just how long you've been eating kind of like the same macros and keeping your body in a rhythm. It just like gets used to it and your metabolism ramps up really fast and you start to stay lean way easier. And
Yeah.
when I was younger, I did it. Whenever people would say this, it would completely fly over my head. Like I just did not understand what they were saying. And I was always just thinking about like, well, what cycle are they taking? What genetics do they have? And what diet are they currently doing? But you don't see the big picture until you've actually been doing it for years. And then you start to realize like how the body changes over time. And like you said, yeah, like I also feel like that, like I didn't work out for 2 years because I was focused on like making money. I was working in a software company and I just completely fell out of like the bodybuilding thing. And I'm like an all or nothing guy. So if I'm not doing it, I'm just not doing it. And the muscle didn't really like go anywhere. Like I was still like 210, 215, like chubby, fat, soft, but I didn't shrink back down to like the 160 I was before I got in the gym. So, but my testosterone level was tanked. I wasn't taking TRT or anything. And I had done cycles before and I had like 300 testosterone, but the muscle didn't go anywhere. And as soon as I put a little bit back in, I started to change like really quickly and ramp up really quickly. So
How many years were you training? Not to interrupt. I'm curious. How many years had you been training until you took your 2 year break?
I would say I was training for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. So that's it's solid. And you're pretty consistent those 5-6 years?
Yeah, mostly like I was mostly natural. Like I was natural for maybe like 4 years and then I was enhanced for a year and then I was getting further into the bodybuilding thing, but then life kind of took like a crossroads where it was either like get into the career stuff or like continue bodybuilding. I just felt like, bodybuilding takes so much time and it's hard to fit into your life. It seems like you've done a pretty good job of it and bodybuilding has kind of been like a central point in your life, but with a lot of clients I work with, and I'm sure that you've had a lot of guys too, it's hard to like find the correct balance. Like, where do you fit it in? How do you fit it
Okay.
around work? How do you fit your cycles around your life? You know, how do you make sure that that you're making progress in bodybuilding and in life at the same time? So I guess that's kind of the code that I'm trying to crack now. So I want to get guys on that know how to do this. And I see you being in shape for 10 years straight. Sometimes you're bigger, sometimes you're smaller. So I'm curious right now, like, what role does bodybuilding play in your life? How many times do you work out? How much time do you dedicate to having to do that, like the physique side of your, lifestyle?
Phenomenal question. By the way, Elon, my brother, these are some great questions. I love how your brain thinks. You're really trying to get the truth out of it, and I love that. And because it's so cool, I think if you figure this shit out, it brings so much quality to your life. It brings so much joy to your life. It brings so much confidence, your self-image. It really bleeds into every other aspect of your life, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, with others, your career, whatever you want to accomplish, just your overall attitude, right? Just when you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm really happy with my representation of myself in the world, right? Whatever words you guys want to use, I don't think there's nothing douchebaggy about it. I think that's just self-love, honestly. And that's where I'm at with the whole thing. It's more of like, I just really love myself, and I don't like the vision I have. Like, I don't have that in my image, in my identity of someone that is not in shape and not physically fit and not healthy. Healthy, number one. I want to look healthy. There have been times where I've been way more ripped, way more shredded, way bigger, but I just didn't look healthy. I want to have that glow, really feel like that vitality of life, right? So thinking about like really defining, you ask like, how do you maintain bodybuilding progress? You really want to define what progress means to you, right? Like if you're a competitor, are you in an off season but you're trained to compete, or are you like having a job and this is just something you do because you enjoy it, or whatever? What you just have to really be honest with yourself, like where are you at? And for me, when I was finding my fluidity with meshing bodybuilding with my professional life, it took a lot of trial and error. So that's the first thing I am gonna say to those of you that are, trying to transition to more of a lifestyle type of approach and have the freedom to, eat out, still eat healthy, maintain a low body fat, train the body, and still make progress in increasing your muscle mass wherever you see fit for relative to your aesthetics, right? There's a lot of trial and error because there's many paths up the mountain. But what I found is that you got to take the path that is most congruent, most aligned with your personality, with your relationship with food. And I'll explain what I mean by these things. And your relationship with food, and also your I would say your standards. I would say that's a good word. Your standards, right? For me, I know that eating out is very important to me, right? And again, I'm talking from like a lifestyle approach. So going out to eat is very important to me. It brings a lot of energy to my day, brings a lot of flavor to my day. Just being at a restaurant, being in that ambiance and sitting down and being served is very important. I don't want to let that go. So knowing that, right? Again, you always want to make your plan based on the end in mind, right? So you want to know like what are your non-negotiables. For one, I can't be fat. I know that. I have to have abs or at least have a six-pack outline, like just for my own standard. I know you have to define these things, right? So I think a lot of people like they go on these pursuits, they don't define what they're trying to actually reach. It's hard to hit a target if you don't make a target, right? So so define what your standards are. For me, it was having abs and making sure I consistently go out to the restaurant. So within that, I would then start thinking what dieting strategies allow for this, right? And then you got to take how much muscle you got into account with your overall calorie intake to then figure out like, okay, like what's my basal metabolic rate? I was grateful, to be at a place to where it's about like 3,500. Right. So it's about 3,000, 3,500. I have a really sharp metabolism. I'm constantly training my body in my morning routine. Right. So I'm already doing that. So I would then think, I was like, what should I do? Should I do like kind of like a keto approach throughout the day? And then like, if I go out to eat, cool. If I eat whatever, I'll go into my glycogen and I can kind of do that. right? So what you want to do is you want to just pick something that makes sense to you and try it. And try it for like a solid 2 to 4 weeks. A solid 2 to 4 weeks, at least 2 weeks, no more than 4 to get a good feel about it, right? If it's working, keep going. I noticed for me, staying on a consistent keto regimen, it wasn't working for me because some days I'd want to eat carbs, some days I wouldn't. And food for me, my relationship with food is very strong. It's very emotional. In bodybuilding, I really didn't like prep because I couldn't eat the foods that I wanted. I noticed my quality of life was low. I think a lot of people can resonate with that, actually, right? I think that's most people. Let's just be honest here. We're following the meal plan because we like how it looks, but we also still really like tasty food. And sometimes, that's a whole rock and a hard place situation. So I didn't want to be with that. And I found keto was not working for me, right? So then the next thing I figured out was like, okay, let me try some intermittent fasting, right? And I had been doing fasting as a tactic, like in prep and before, and used it, but I never used it in actually my, as from a lifestyle approach. And this allowed me to find, right? And this is kind of the picture I want to paint for you guys and all the listeners, is that as you take your first step forward and like just pick some kind of a route, you end up finding more information about what the most optimal layout of your day, what the most optimal approach would be for you. So how it looked like for me was I just started experimenting with different keto, with different like low carb approaches throughout the day. And then finally, when I tacked on intermittent fasting, and I didn't really care about breakfast anyway. I work a lot. I like just work in the mornings, drink coffee, and just focus on stuff. I noticed if I just push my eating out to about 5 p.m. and
5
keep my work
p.m. What time do you wake up?
anywhere from between 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. in that range. It really varies. It fluctuates depending on how late I stay up. Right. But then I have like this automated sequence of behaviors that I go through in the morning, which is, my morning routine, which is, I've been doing it for so long. Right. So working out is one of those activities in the morning. So I figured out that if I trained in the morning, fasted, I'd burn off all the glucose that I just ate stuff in my face the night before. So now my blood glucose level is like 0. My insulin's like super leveled out. I'm probably in a state of ketosis by the time I'm in my workout or after my workout. Right. And I noticed that, after I do my work, my metabolism, right, it's like cranked up. It's like you're revving your engine. Right. So now I'm just here with like burning fat from like 11 a.m. all the way till I break my fast at 5 p.m. I'm just breaking body fat. And I found that allowed me to break my fast I have like this whole food smoothie. And again, guys, I'm trying to like give you the short version. This took a lot of trial and error. I have to like play with things, move different variables around this, bodybuilding lifestyle equation here. And then that's what you got to do, and just figure out which one's working for you. Right. But I'm like a fat ass at heart. So I knew I had to eat a lot of food at nighttime because that's what makes me happy, eating a lot of food at once. But I also need to get my nutrition in. Right. So I'm like, okay, I found out that like by 5 p.m. I have this smoothie. It's about like 1,100 calories of quality carbs, fats, protein, plant-based proteins, eggs, egg whites, oats, natural peanut butter, throw some spinach in there, frozen fruit, all that good stuff, banana. And I would drink that and then have a really big meal around 6:37. Now, either this would be a really big meal or it would be like Chipotle or we'd go out to dinner, whatever, BJ's, Cheesecake Factory. And I'm literally, I can, at this point, I can order whatever. Right, like I got 4,000 calories because my basal's already at 3,000 to 3,500. I'm doing a 45-minute like crazy workout in the morning. I train very intense, and I'm doing an hour of cardio because I'm just on phone calls and like doing whatever emails on the cardio or watching Dragon Ball Z or something like that. Whatever I feel like doing. So I'm doing 2 hours of activity. If you count my cool down, because after I'm stretching and doing foam rolling. Right. Because again, health and longevity, I want to feel good in my body. I want to be mobile. I want to be flexible. I want to be able to touch my, fingers till I rollerblade and stuff also for cardio. So I'm very active. I probably burn more calories than a typical bodybuilder does on prep just from a lifestyle approach. So I want to also make that known, guys. So, find fun. A lot of people hate cardio. I'm like, go rollerblade, go run outside, go hike, go find other modalities of burning calories that are fun. I learned through working out and doing it every morning. Like I have no plan when it comes to working out anymore. Now, of course, that's not as easy as it sounds for if you're like trying to bring up certain muscle groups, then yeah, of course you have to have a plan. But for me, I'm really happy with my aesthetics. I just like keeping everything pretty even. So I kind of go in and have a different kind of a workout every day, and it's kind of fun after so many years of doing it. I kind of like just figure it out as I go. It's become kind of instinctual. I do my cardio either before and after, do my work stuff while I'm on cardio, stretch and foam roll out, and then I'm just, obsessed. Just my consciousness is just, totally in my work the rest of the day, especially if I have a lot of coaching calls, I'm talking to people, I'm doing fun stuff, I'm writing content. I end up losing myself, right, in that type of work. So you got to take these things into account, right? If you have some long commute or you're just starving your ass off the whole time, this may not be ideal. You got to take all these factors into account, right? So the way my life was set up, I was able to find the route that worked best for me. And it looked like burning a fuckload of calories in the morning, staying fasted throughout the day till about 3 to 5 p.m., and breaking fast with a smoothie because I want to give my body, quality nutrients. And smoothies are just really, for one, they're tasty, and they bypass the stomach because the stomach's just really meant to pulverize the food and just make it soft anyway to then get absorbed. So I can just get quick absorption to the nutrients, jumpstart my metabolism, and then I can take that into whatever, if we're going out to dinner or just, having a whole bunch of, gluten-free cookies and fun, healthy, I'll never eat fast food. That's another thing. Like, I'll just never eat just dumb food. Like, that's like not real food. Like, if you go like 7-Eleven, you just, the food over a gas station food, fast food. Like, don't eat that, guys. Like, come on, just go. If you really want to eat some bullshit, just go to the restaurant, order some high quality bullshit. At least it's so much better for your body. And just I think the fasting, without doing the fasting, I don't think it would be possible to eat this freely all day long, right, and still maintain that low body fat. So anyway, I know that was a lot of information. Does that kind of help?
No, I mean,
paint a
that's
picture?
it takes a while to hash these things out. And I know because, I'm trying to talk to people about this kind of stuff. It's been a process to figure it out for myself as well. I'm trying to write a ebook right now, like to kind of encapsulate like what this bodybuilding lifestyle thing is about and how to design one yourself. Right. And as I'm writing it, I'm like, there's so many, it's like impossible to boil it down because there's so many different kinds of lifestyles and so many different ways that you can structure it that it still kind of works for different people. And at first I actually wrote it like based around intermittent fasting. But then like a lot of the people who reach out to me for coaching and stuff like that are looking to put on muscle. They're not already Akaash Aesthetics who already had the muscle and now can not eat until 5 p.m. and still be big and rip for his whole life.
Exactly.
So it's like it really, I'm kind of have to write like 3 books at the same time. Like, one for guys that are not there yet, one for guys that are already there and looking to sustain it. And then for fat guys who are looking to lean up, it's a completely different story because you can't tell some fat guy don't eat till 5 p.m. I mean, they're going to murder somebody
No
at
way.
work. So it's just like, I'm curious, obviously, and I think that there is value for people listening to hear what your take is and how you do it at this point. But I think that it's like impossible to take what you're doing at this point and then put it on to like a random guy that like never really worked out. It's not gonna work. So it's just so hard to kind of make like a one size fits all approach, or even like kind of like a choose your own adventure approach, because you kind of have to throw the whole, sink out with the water every time you're designing a program. Like everyone's program is going to be completely different from the ground up. So I don't know. For me, I tried the intermittent fasting approach. It worked for me, but I wasn't able to really put on the muscle that I wanted to put on without the consistent like mTOR stimulation. And I'm still looking to gain size kind of thing. So I think that eventually once I reach the size that I want, which my goal is to be like a lean 220. And right now I'm like a pretty lean 215. So once I get to like, 235 kind of like on a lean bulking, and then I can work my way down to 220. I'm 5'11". So then I can probably do like a plan more similar to yours. Although I think not eating till 5 is kind of crazy, but I'm assuming you started lower and you kind of were pushing it till 5, or did you just set it at 5 right away?
So I mean, it would vary, right? Depending on I'm very intuitive, right? And you hit the nail on the head here. How it's like not super feasible for a lot of people to, be taking this approach. It's kind of like this is like calculus, and you can't even really understand it unless you know like pre-cal, algebra 2, trigonometry. And if someone's over here on algebra 1 and geometry, like they can't, if you show some kid in geometry class a calculus book, it's going to look like gibberish. That's like a good analogy of like kind of what this type of work is. If you're a beginner, right, again, right, like you shouldn't be trying to create a lifestyle around something you don't even have yet, right? So, you know, when I was building my body, I was very regimented. You know, I dedicated a certain number of hours of my day every day to that, right? So I think a lot of people are trying to have their cake and eat it too. It's like there are certain like checkpoints that need to be reached. You need to do it in certain phases of like creating a foundation of muscle, educating yourself on nutrition, how to read a nutrition label, how different combinations of macros react in your body. And then it's a trip too, because as your body evolves, how food reacts in your body changes. And then if you add, you know, supplements on top of that, enhancements, compounds on top of that, that change, it's another variable, changes how the food reacts in your body again, how your body reacts to the whole food thing. So then you have to then do this type of work in a very, you know, controlled fashion, kind of like a scientist, and observe the results. So then you can start learning how you relate to these different modalities or methods of building your body. So then you can start to figure out which ones work for you and which ones don't, and slowly start to leave off what doesn't and keep what does, from a supplement standpoint, from a food standpoint, from a training standpoint. And that whole understanding is going to evolve over 3 to 5 years to a set of philosophies that you then have, that, you know, okay, I know if I eat like this, eat this general type of food, if I eat in this style with this type of a training, that I can achieve X result. I know, like, you know, I know what's going to happen now if I eat back-to-back cheat meals. And if I'm eating back-to-back cheat meals and I haven't got time to work out to burn off the extra glycogen, I've now been able to get to a point in my development to where I can intuitively feel, okay, like I'm at this restaurant now. I know I didn't go to the gym this morning because, you know, life and stuff like that. Last night I ended up freaking going to BJ's and having a pizookie platter and the avocado egg rolls and all that stuff with, like, you know, 4 Long Islands, you know. Stopped at Taco Bell or something. I would never eat at Taco Bell, excuse me. That's just a have stopped at like some taqueria, some Mexican taqueria at nighttime to get a burrito, right? And then I woke up and I'm all hungover, and then we're just Netflixing and chilling, right? And then we're like, you know, getting out, going on a walk, doing something, and then, like, I don't know, this will happen. Like, friends call, go out to eat. I'm still gonna go out to eat, but now I might order a salad, right? I might have like a big fat salad, keep it very low carb, high in protein. I'm still, you know, I'm not, you know, saying no to fun lifestyle stuff, but if you take a, you know, an amateur or a not, you know, someone that's even intermediate, like they won't even know how to even navigate through that situation, right? And next thing you know, you're like, oh, I just gained 10 pounds over the weekend and I erased my whole week of dieting that I, you know, did, right? So you got to be honest, where are you at, right? And then you always have to take advice. Like, if you're at level 10, don't listen to level 30 and 40 tactics and strategies. Use level 11 tactics and strategies, you know? So I think that's how it should go. So that's really cool that you're writing this book. You know, that's, we can even talk later because if you're going to organize the information, I would love to actually, on a side note, I would love to just, you know, because I'm fascinated about this concept too. I've always wondered how I could tell somebody this, and I just haven't found a way unless I can one-on-one diagnose the situation, figure out where they're at, and then help them, you know, very personally. But like, that'd be cool if, you know, we can find a way to teach this to people at large in the ebook sense. That'd be priceless, brother. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it in a way where it's not like 300 pages, because I feel like a lot of these bodybuilding books, it's like 300 pages and there's like a bunch of scientific studies and like all this bullshit that like isn't, like, that's great and that's fine and like people can do that. But I'm just trying to give people an understanding, like on a application basis of, like, you know, you do this, this happens. You don't need to really understand the science. Like you're saying, you need to develop like an intuitive sense of how you respond with these sort of things. Like you can understand the science, and you can understand the science and have the intuition, and then it will work, or you can just have the intuition and it'll still work. But it's harder to teach the person science and intuition than just the philosophical approach of how to approach this. And I think that what you described and what I'm trying to get across to people here, and always in my content, like in every Instagram post and stuff, like in the captions, is that it's like, it's really comes down to like not like a knowledge like base, and also the mindfulness that you have all the time. So it's like you're always kind of thinking about the food, like you're like, what you ate then, what you're eating now. It's like you're always doing like kind of a calculation in your head. And I'm a big fan of like not only the calculation in your head, but also I log all my food like into a chronometer, just because it builds a good habit. And I know like, then I can look back on like not only yesterday or what I can remember, but also what happened 3 days ago, 4 days ago, my weight, how it's fluctuating. And you can kind of create like a graphical representation. It's a little bit more work, but it gives you a lot more data. So like when people come to me and they want to work, I'm like, okay, the first thing we need to do is like establish a baseline to figure out like, what do you need to do to stay the same and trend slowly in a positive direction? And then like on a cruise and with a maintenance calories. And then we decide on a goal, and then we decide to put things in slowly working towards the goal. And the goal is always a lifestyle goal, because I feel like a competition is easier, because it's just like, okay, you want to do a competition? Like right now you have this much fat to lose. Here's Trendmaster on test prop, run it for 12 weeks. We'll throw in the Clen and the T3 towards the end, and there's your competition. Whatever you're going to look like, you're going to look like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, it is easier to do like a one size fits all diagnosis, as opposed to when there's not like really a super concrete like day where you need to look your best. It's just looking better every day. And that's kind of like the struggle here. So
yeah,
I mean,
I see that. It is easier. I agree. It is easier just to do the prep, right?
Like the last guest I had was Tony, and he, obviously kind of like pioneers this kind of stuff in his whole like flexible cycle. Like today he wakes up and feels like taking this, tomorrow he wakes up and feels like taking that. But I feel it's like, you can't just tell people, wake up and do whatever you feel like.
No. Yeah. Love Tony. It's crazy though. In a good way, but he's Tony, man. We love him, but yeah,
we're all a little crazy, like
in our own
type
way.
Type of person that's willing to like create a lifestyle surrounding enhancing yourself, tracking everything, like just being like that. That's already kind of crazy in a sense, but really what we're looking to do is live, like you said, the highest quality life that we possibly can. Like that's what we want for ourselves, and we are willing to kind of like create freedom through limitations in a way, like it's a trade-off all the time. And
oh, I like that. Create freedom through limitations. Can you expand on that idea a little bit more?
Yeah, so like
cool.
It's just like, Tony talks a lot about freedom, and a lot of my foundational ideas come from him, because I like when I was first getting into bodybuilding, I really got into his content. And when I met him in 2016 in Thailand, he made like a big impact on me in terms of his philosophy. And I'm sure on you as well, because we're younger, you know what I mean? And we absorbed a lot from somebody who knows a lot, right? But what I've learned throughout the years is that like, freedom is great, but you can't just do whatever you want whenever you want. That's going to lead down like a path of, unbridled hedonism, and there's no end point there. So you have to be able to kind of allow yourself things, but you have to also like, you shouldn't allow like governments or, relationships or other people to put the limitations on you. You have to self-limit. Like, instead of like, if I have a bottle of testosterone in front of me, I need to be able to limit myself so I don't start taking the whole thing, every week. Like I'll get bigger and stronger if I just take everything in my cabinet right now and inject it all into myself as fast as possible. But I have to put a limitation on myself on purpose. I have to put a limitation on what I eat. I have to put a limitation on the time that I go to sleep. Like I have to self-impose myself kind of into a box in order to have the freedom of the things that I want, like a 6-pack abs, to be able to eat out at a restaurant, to be able to, be happy and not feel bad about myself. Because if you just do whatever you want, whenever you want, ultimately, I feel like you kind of end up losing self-esteem because.
Yeah, you well said, brother.
I mean, what do you think about that?
I agree 100%. It's almost like life is so chaotic. So in like, there's, I'm not even going to go down to like the quantum mechanics side of things and whatnot, But like, if you really just look at it, there's infinite possibilities that you could do at all moments of your day, right? Like, I mean, yeah, you might like think you have to wake up and go to work. I mean, you don't really have to. Yes, there's going to be consequences. You know what I mean? You get reprimanded, get fired, or something like that. But you can literally do whatever you want. Like, where I'm going with this is you can spend your time however you want. You can, go wherever, do whatever, buy whatever. There's obviously there's always going to be obviously going to be ramifications, but essentially, if you, like, to your point, if you're not limiting yourself or creating some kind of, well, I like to think about it in terms of creating order and structure, right, in your day, and not having it, like you said, be like a relationship or government or something else. Like, no, like, this is the order and structure that I designed for myself based on how I want my life to look. And that might be ever changing and evolving, but hey, right now, today, this is how I want to, what's important to me. Like, we're about to go out to eat again this evening. I didn't work out today, but I did like a 3-hour alignment kind of situation. I got my whole, deep tissue massage work that burns a whole bunch of calories. I did a 30-minute sauna. I'm cognizant of these kinds of things and whatnot. And I was a little bit hungry. I was thinking about eating on the weekends. Like, I kind of eat a little bit more freely, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay fasted because I didn't lift any weights or do any cardio this morning, and we're going to go out to eat and stuff like that. I'm sacrificing eating and doing, I'm sacrificing having my stomach feel good for 3 hours so that I can go out to lunch with my lady, and that's more important to me, and not have to feel bloated after or feel like tomorrow I have to like play some kind of catch up because no one likes that, right? And then habits, right? Like, if you don't have the habit of training consistently and doing cardio consistently every day already, if you don't have a habit, it gets extremely difficult to like control these other factors, right? You want to always build habits. You don't want to go through life using a whole bunch of willpower. It's exhausting, right? You want to use your willpower to build a habit that supports you, and then that habit then works for you when you're not feeling good, when you have low energy, when you're depressed or stressed out, because we're all human, right? This habit does the work for you. Like, my habit will get me to the gym. My habit will make me fast. My habit will, make sure that, I do my cardio every day, right? Like, so I have all these, habits, and I feel like just orienting yourself properly to where you are in your phase of your training. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve here? And, if this lifestyle thing is your goal, then think about it like, like a scientist. Be very methodical about it. Like, because I knew lifestyle was my goal, like, I always knew, like, okay, let me use these supplements, because even when I stopped competing, I would still take things like IGF LR3 on my post cycle. I would still be taking IGF des and YK11 on my weak point training days, and staying disciplined in that matter and structured in that manner, because yeah, it might seem like a lot of stuff to keep track of, but it was for I had that foresight to know, like, in 6 months or a year, when I have my physique how I want it to be, how it looks in my head, in my vision, I was like, I knew I'd get there eventually. I knew at some point it would arrive, and it would get there. And then I knew at that point, all I would have to do was drive blood flow to all my muscles, and essentially it would just stay that way. If I just took tests and just drove blood flow to the muscles,
Yeah.
right? That's it. It would stay that way, right? And then I just make sure that I don't, do some dumb shit by eating too much food, which, just being a responsible adult, I think, you know what I mean? If for kids, it's a lot, younger people, I know it's harder. It was harder for me back in the day, for sure. But as you get older, you kind of learn how to get more self-control as you mature and whatnot. And that's all I really got to keep track of. And then I can, I can focus on, work and other business stuff and whatever else. So there's just no way you're going to get to that unless you go through the prerequisite of, living that kind of bodybuilding lifestyle, I think, for a while,
Like, sometimes people in the enhanced kind of avenue ask me, like, or, I know this is a common debate, like, what's the best time to take your growth hormone? What's the best time to take your insulin? What's the best time to do this kind of stuff? And obviously insulin is very much on the timing basis. But in terms of the growth hormone, what I've been saying is just make sure that you take it in the IUs that you need every day. Like, that's going to be more important than the timing of it. Like, yes, you can time it. Like, maybe some people it'll be better post-workout, some people better pre-workout, some people in the morning before bed. It depends on your personal preference kind of thing. And there's obviously some science that goes into that too. But the most important thing is that you're in the habit of taking growth hormone. And if you take it every day, you're going to get the results. And if you take your, you know what your milligrams are, like, I'm on 600, 700 milligrams a week, just got to make sure that you get those shots in consistently over time, and you're going to get the results with the training and the diet. It doesn't, not for the lifestyle aspect, everything doesn't have to be 150% precise. It just has to be consistent enough, and you need the inputs kind of coming in over time, and the body will learn and it'll start to adapt. Like, I feel like a lot of the times people overthink this, and I had this mistake, especially with the growth hormone, because I thought I don't want to take it until I know everything about it and the right time to take it to maximize the money that I'm putting in, because it's an investment. But once I was just like, you know what, I'm going to spend $300 a month on growth hormone, and I'm just going to take it like pharmaceutical, and I'm just going to take it as, like, I'm going to spend $300 a month, and I'm going to take whatever I bought for $300 a month every day. And then I just started to get results. And then I can figure out when the best time to put it in is. And it's kind of the same approach that I'm having right now with building my social media, because I just started, and I'm talking to a few friends who are also trying to build their social media and their businesses and stuff. And they're saying, what's the best time to post? What's, how much should we post, whatever. I'm just like, I'm just posting as much as I can, as when I feel like I should, you know what I mean? I try to get at least one post in a day. So it's just like, it doesn't really, like, instead of worrying about what the best time is, I just get it out. And I'm like, okay, I got it done for today. I'm building a lifestyle where I'm posting on social media. So I guess I want to transition into this. If you have another, like, maybe 30 minutes, we can get into the business entrepreneur stuff.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
So this is also kind of
and also, like, I'm open to, I'm definitely open. I love the energy. I just wanted to say I love the energy. I'm definitely open to doing another podcast. So don't we can for sure keep talking, but then I don't think you have to cram anything in here. We can always make time for stuff. I always got time to give value, and if I can even help one person with anything I learned in my life, it's a win.
That's
what I mean?
awesome.
So, but yeah, I got time, brother.
And
sure.
I think the podcast medium, just on a little tangent, the podcast medium is growing really fast right now. In bodybuilding, everyone's having a podcast right now. So and what I've noticed too is that people are starting to team up on different podcasts. So like people will have like a crew on that do the specific series on their podcast. So I'm trying to looking to like establish like something like that too, like maybe in the longer term, like regular people that come on for specific topics or just to chat or whatever. So build more of like a community around the podcast as opposed to individual guests every single time. But we can talk more about that off
I like
air.
that. Yeah, we'll talk off air. Yeah.
But I want to ask you about, so kind of selfishly, and also, like for the people listening, I know that, you've managed to be successful in this field, and you've transitioned from bodybuilding into entrepreneurship full time pretty much, right? Like you don't really make money off of bodybuilding anymore or competing, or do you still do bodybuilding coaching at all?
So I have like a couple clients that we've just developed a really good relationship. We've become friends over the years when I would be doing fitness coaching and stuff like that. So for those guys, we have that history and we work really well together. I know their body. And so I do some competition prep. If someone, because of the content I post, the energy I put out there, I'm just not the first pick to do a competition prep. It's not really how I position myself in the marketplace. But yes, like for people that know me and I have that relationship with in the past, I do bodybuilding coaching. And, I still do make an income from bodybuilding. It's one of my income streams. I just don't talk about it too much just because the essence of, who I am and what I do in this world has evolved. And, but yeah, no, I mean, I still make a solid income. I have my store where I sell all the enhanced athlete products. I have, old clients and, even new clients take the products from like a biohacking approach. A lot of people I work with are business owners, and they're all working out for, just energy, health, wellness, and confidence, self-image, right? So the supplements, so I still make plenty of sales in bodybuilding. It would be kind of silly if I didn't still make, have an income from bodybuilding because I had so much, history and years invested into that route, right?
So how was the trend? Like, I think it's uncommon that someone builds up kind of the name that they that you did in the bodybuilding world where you could make a living full-time off of it. You were making a living full-time off of it as a sponsored
Yeah.
athlete, as a coach, and all that stuff, and then just decides to switch into a completely different avenue. Why did you
Yeah.
decide to make that change?
That's a really, really good question, brother. And so I'll just speak from my experience about what happened to me. And like my mindset, I have a very growth-oriented type of mind. I'm always looking like, not that I'm never satisfied. I'm like, what is the next fullest expression of my soul, right? Not to get all like woo woo, but like that's I feel like I truly believe that we are spirits in a human body. I really do believe that, and I feel like our spirit may evolve in directions that we might not see coming. Um, and that's just what happened to me. So with bodybuilding, I wanted to that showed up because I wanted to have a body I was proud of. I wanted to have a physique I was proud of. I wanted to represent myself to the world, someone I was proud of. I grew up a little bit, not a little bit, I should say, with very, very poor self-image and a lot of self-doubt, a lot of fear, insecurity, a lot of shame, got bullied a lot and whatnot. And, it all worked out, obviously. But at that time, I was always trying to like kind of heal myself in a way. Um, and that's where I got started in bodybuilding. I had a horrible self-image, so I'm like, okay, well, let me make it look good, right? And then it was very interesting. It's like I had this great-looking body, but I still had this bad impression on it. I don't want to take that tangent, but that was its own little evolution there, where I have to then figure out, hey, I need to make the change within to then see myself in that light later. But anywho, got into bodybuilding. I realized that the college route just wasn't for me, and I'm Indian Asian parents, doctor, lawyer, engineer. If not like if not like you're kind of like disowned by the family. So it was a lot of after high school. I had all this time invested in bodybuilding, and that's where I was spending a lot of my time. I was like, how do I make it? This is like my only number one really good skill set, right? I was like, how do I make money at this? How do I monetize this, right? And then so as I was competing, I noticed I'm like, okay, I'm competing. I'm trying to earn my pro card, getting sponsorships, building up my social media, doing some coaching on the side. And then I remember I was dating one of my ex-girlfriend at the time, and then she was like, you're a really good coach. You should do more. Like when you talk to people on the phone, they explain things really well, and I had just never really considered it. I thought it was like a side hustle, right? So then I started really attacking the coaching side of bodybuilding and helping people not just prep for shows, but radically change their physique. And I through having a coaching practice, I then found my own unique methodologies around my relationship with food, how I helped other people think about it, setting up their lifestyle in such a way that they can make these gains and still have some sort of fun and whatnot. So fast forward, I ended up building up the fitness coaching business to six figures. We're doing multiple six figures. And then, what happened was I always I wanted like more out of life. I was like, I wasn't feeling, after you make like $10,000 a month, you can kind of do whatever, kind of. You're not like buying Lambos and Ferraris, but rent is no problem, bills is no problem. You're eating out whenever you want. Whenever, if you go to the mall, you feel like you see some clothes, you're not really looking at the price tag. You're like, I'll get it. Because, I was consistently doing like 15, 20, 25K months, like for over a year, like 18 months. So at that point, I started getting really depressed, honestly, to be honest, Elon. I started getting hella depressed because, money's cool, but it was like, I really wanted to I was like thinking about my life. I was like, well, if I ever stop coaching, right? Like, if I don't coach for 3 months, I'm not going to make an income for 3 months. I mean, yeah, I have my supplement sales, but a good chunk of my income is going to go away. I didn't like that. So I wanted to have freedom, right? And this kind of goes back to like feeling really suppressed as a kid. Like I wanted to just kind of have more expansion. So that expansion, that's why I had the physique. That's why I started competing. That's why I built a business. Took a lot. The reason me and Tony became friends, honestly, is because I noticed that he was a very business-minded type of individual. In the gym, he was like always on his phone, doing emails, talking. I'm like, wow, this guy's doing something. And then not a lot of bodybuilders took notice to that side of what he had going on. They were more concerned about supplements, just typical bodybuilding mentality. Nothing wrong with that, but I was more curious as to like how do you have a Ferrari? How do you have this mansion and Ferrari and what? You was a lawyer and then this business thing and what? And then like I'm hearing numbers and things getting thrown around. I'm like, well, that's a lot more money than I'm making. And it's not about the money, but I was always interested into like, I noticed he was able to make money when he slept. Right. And I was like, that's not working out for me. All right. If I'm not making money when I sleep. Right. Like, so I was like, how do you do that? So then I started figuring out like, okay, how do I build a business? Like I built the fitness coaching business, but I was like, that was more of like, kind of with like a hustler type of a mentality. Like I'm going after, I'm doing calls, I'm doing outreach, I'm doing consultations, I'm building these processes. But then, from a entrepreneur perspective, that's more about like systems, processes, automation, right? You're kind of taking more of a bird's eye view approach to what's going on and kind of being the puppet master, controlling the puppet, so to speak, right? And that was just really fascinating. So as I was building the fitness coaching business, I kept doing that and I kept hanging around Tony. And then, I started like noticing, right? You start when your reticular activating system in your brain, right? When you buy a new car, like you'll see that same car everywhere. I kind of committed to entrepreneur type of thinking and I started seeing other entrepreneurial opportunities around me, right? So this led me to a wide variety of different business ventures. Some of them worked out, a lot of them didn't. Some of them worked out, a lot of them didn't, but I gained a ton of experience. And that happened simultaneously with my fitness coaching business, which then started evolving into me helping other people build their own fitness coaching business. Cause I noticed I could charge, a much higher, if I'm teaching someone how to make 100 grand, I can charge a lot more than like 1,500, 2K for like maybe a 12, 16 week, program that they'll do with me and whatnot. Right. So I was like, let me start doing that and whatnot. And I was in this little dance between coaching and like other business ventures. Like I remember I had started like a hot sauce company on the side, a yoga pants company before both failures and whatnot. I learned a lot, but like that's kind of where I was at. I was trying to figure out how to, have that time freedom, right? Because essentially I like to live life on my terms, right? I want to have it designed how I want to. I love coaching, but I want to be able to, if I am in a position to where I just don't want to take on clients right now, that my income's not going to take a huge hit, right? And that's kind of where my thought process was. So if you just follow that trajectory, right, that I'm kind of laying out here, it eventually arrived at me learning that, hey, I'm a coach first and foremost. That's the kind of person I am, because I noticed in all these other business ventures, I didn't get nearly as much joy as I did helping other people, right? But if it wasn't for all those business ventures, I wouldn't have even developed that experience for me to then have the level of coaching or the type of coaching practice I do today that you see with the performance coaching, which has been, birthed out of all this trial and error with, some business development coaching, some life coaching stuff, as well as doing other business ventures. I mean, like I started investing in real estate. I did this other supplement company stuff, still there actually, and whatnot. And, just, totally went deep into like serial entrepreneur mode. And then coming out of that, I was like, I ended up finding, I was like, where am I the most happy? Right. And I'm the most happy doing things like this, what I'm doing with you, talking to people, sharing my knowledge, sharing my, fruits of my labor, essentially. Right. Because it brings your life purpose. You're like, oh, my hardship, if I can turn my hardship into a piece of wisdom I can give to somebody, that's priceless and makes you feel super good. So I was like, how do I construct a business model where that's my number one thing, right? And maybe I still have these other business. I do. I invest in real estate, have these other businesses, but like that's like my number two, to where like my main cash flow is what makes me feel. I want to feel happy and like I'm playing when I'm working. I don't want to feel like I'm working when I work. I want to feel like it's play. And I noticed nothing does that for me except coaching. And then that's what I figured out. Like, okay, how do I, embed my bodybuilding knowledge, but still give a bigger service, right? How do I help, help people from a more holistic route, right? From like a biohacking perspective. Now it's evolved to helping, business owners understand more of a quantum mechanical type of gameplay within them making moves. And bodybuilding is more of a supportive pillar of that, from a energy, self-image, confidence type of standpoint, is how it's supportive of the end result, if you will, that I offer my clients today. So yeah, I know that was a lot of information, but it was quite the evolution. I didn't know that's how it was going to turn out. right? I had to first get really dry and, really blah about the fitness coaching. Then I started taking a little bit of a revenue hit because it gave more hours of time to dabbling with other businesses, investing in those other businesses, having those failures, and learning and acquiring certain mentors and whatnot. Like a couple of my real estate mentors ended up were first clients of mine, and that's how that whole thing. So life is a ride, man. Life is a ride, and in your before I think before you're 30, right? In your 21 through 29, I think that is the time to just really go out there and just try many different things. Be in that exploratory type of mindset, right? Like try different business ideas, try different ventures, different avenues, like that's like a hot sauce company and yoga pants. What? Like, where does that even come from? Right. And then investing in real estate, health and wellness supplement company. What else? I did some digital marketing stuff where I learned how to like hire and fire and have payroll and have like an S Corp corporation and whatnot. So all that happened. And it took me, 2 years of doing that, then figure out like, okay, I'm a coach first and foremost, because I just ain't happy if I'm not coaching, if I'm not talking to people and sharing life and sharing that energy. I'm just not going to be nearly as happy, which is going to take away from my energy to then do everything, all the other business, money making ventures well. Right. So that's how I've arrived here.
So I mean, I think that you have your understanding of business is definitely a lot higher than mine. When you're talking about the bodybuilding stuff, I'm like, oh, I know that. I follow this. I can ask a question that builds on this. But as you're talking about this stuff, I see that I'm not there in terms of business. So I want to start at the beginning, because I feel like maybe what happened is you've been someone with kind of like a lot of drive and a lot of freedom from like a young age. So you kind of took that like youthful exuberance and just sprayed it all over the place, and then learned lessons from that kind of thing. And I think for me, just personally, I've been somebody who has been I've just been trying to kind of go down like the standard route until this year, when I kind of like lost my job during the coronavirus thing. And when we initially made contact, I was pitching you for the software company that I was working for, which I don't know if you remember this, but you were like going to get on a call with the people. I was slanging software to supplement companies. We sold like Microsheet, we sold like a few other people. So I was in a very like employee, like sales mindset. Like,
I remember. Yeah, I do. I remember. Yeah. For Modern Lifestyle, actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
So I was in a very like, I was in the mindset of like, okay, these people gave me an opportunity. I'm looking to make a 6-figure income right out of, I just came out of college. So I'm looking to sell, with maximum force and just give them all of my energy kind of thing. Whereas you took your energy and were putting it in entrepreneurial ventures, scaling, kind of building off the things that you were making, you know what I mean? Whereas a lot of mine, it's like they were getting the returns of like my efforts, and I was getting, 5% of that, you know what I mean? So when I lost my job, I was like, this is honestly a great opportunity, because I made a lot of money and I have a good like thing to fall back on. I don't need to work for a while. And now I have the freedom to be able to build my thing and kind of jump into what I kind of like the whole time, which is the bodybuilding thing. So what advice would you have for like somebody starting off as a bodybuilding coach, like from kind of like ground zero to build up like a client base and get their name out there to, get to the 10K a month mark?
Oh, beautiful question. Yeah. And so what you want to do, and it sounds like you've already done that, is your first business should be based around what you have, skill in currently, like what you have some level of expertise in, right? You got to have that. You got to have something to offer, right? Because in business, the way you make money is by giving some kind of value into the marketplace, whether that be through a product or a service or both. Right. So, in the beginning, I had the ability to, make people transform their physiques and help people do that. So I monetized that. And that is what helped me learn business, is by first having my, commodities that I would, products and services, coaching services that I would sell. Right. And then through having that exchange, like that's a business now. It's like a baby business. And then through that, you can then tack on like, okay, like how do I do marketing? How do I do sales? How do I do, client outreach? How do I do client upkeep? How do I do, if you're at a little bit higher level, then, like ads, advertisement, stuff like that. And then each of those different routes are going to spin off into different veins of like, under marketing, there's like, your branding, and then there's like your social media content. Then it's like, how are you positioning yourself on social media? How does that relate to what your offer is in your business? Right. But for building a successful, not just fitness coaching business, any business, you got to have social media dialed, right? Which is something, if you scroll all the way back on my Instagram, you can see my social media kind of evolve as I, evolve in my career. And that's super normal, but you got to be always speaking to who your ideal customer is at that time, right? For when it was fitness coaching, if you scroll all the way back, I'm posting a whole bunch of like, fitness content and whatnot, right? When it was like Modern Life was built a supplement company, posting a lot about supplements, talking like health and wellness tips and tricks of, how to like have a better lifestyle, how to like think better, more mindfulness content. Right now, I'm more on like that performance entrepreneur type of stuff where I'm selling like high level consulting services and whatnot, essentially. Where I'm talking more very conceptual, very dense type of material. So for yourself, right, I would think, for scaling your fitness coaching business to hit the 10K per mark a month is pretty simple. I would say anything under $1,500, 2K for 12 weeks, you shouldn't sell any packages under that. And again, if you're trying to, if we need to have a separate phone call about this, I'm super happy to help and go into more depth. But I wouldn't sell anything. I would have the price point for sure at 1,500, 2K, because that's a huge value. You're giving somebody a vehicle to where they can leverage your expertise to basically make their own decisions, essentially in their own life via you as their coach. And the end result is, they, get the body that they want in their head, whether that takes in 3 months, 6 months, a year, or whatever, right? That's like a huge change. Like people don't know how to do that. It is a very scarce skill set. A lot of people know it, but very few people can coach in an effective manner and transmit that information properly to a client. And I can already tell you do that very well just because of how you think, just how you're asking these questions and whatnot. So I know your ability to actually fulfill the coaching is there. Right now, it probably sounds, I got to take a little better look at your social media, but your social media, when your ideal clients, and that's another thing, who's your ideal client, right? Are you going to be more of a bodybuilding prep kind of a person? Are you focusing on guys or girls? Is it a little bit of both? Is it a certain age range you're focusing on? Or are you going to target, the average Joe or like the stay-at-home mom? I got a friend of mine, Caleb Fong, like this guy, he just targets stay-at-home moms, right? Like, like fit Asian dude, and, good looking fit guy, but he targets all his ads, all his messaging, all his clients are around stay-at-home fit moms. Stay-at-home moms that are trying to get fit, stay-at-home moms that are trying to get fit that are like age 30 to 50. Right. And he kills it. He kills it. Like he's doing like, I don't know, but he's doing like at least like 50 to 80K a month or something like that. Just doing that. And he hired like, and it's retarded, because if you get your messaging down right, like there's so many people that need help with what you have to offer. Right. And then you have some basic ads, because when you know who your content speaks to, it's really easy to go on the Facebook ad manager or YouTube ads and then put your ad right on the back of either that person's surf history or on the YouTube channels that they watch. It's super easy once you know who you're talking to. And then your content should be words, and like when your ideal customer is reading the content or going through the content, they should feel like you're almost like in their head talking about, you want to be articulating their problems like for them, like, you want to be talking about what their fears are. You want to give them the solution, not that you think is correct, but that they think is correct, right? Because you can't help them with the level of, you can't bring them up to your level of thinking until you meet them where they're at. So the content, needs to do that, and that is a skill in itself, to be able to have content that does a equal amount of selling as well as adding value, as well as kind of not psychological manipulation, but psychological messaging. Because if you can't help anybody unless you can't help them unless you sell them, unfortunately, you just can't, right? And the only way you can sell them is if they feel like you're someone that gets them, So in order for them to go on your page and be like, okay, Elon totally feels me on this, they have to see content that articulates the problem that they're experiencing in their own head, right? And this can be a wide array of a whole bunch of things. And this is why how your ideal client defined is so important, because the problems and inner psychological dialogue of a stay-at-home mom is going to be different from a competitor, is going to be different than a college kid that's staying fit. It's going to be different than maybe a executive or a professional that has a corporate job that values their health and fitness, but they are trying to do it for more of like an energy or just be a fit for more of a productivity reasons, right? That's going to be completely different content depending on who you want to speak to. So first figuring out who you want to serve as a business, and it's okay if it evolves. Just understand if it does evolve, your content will then evolve with it, right? And then tailoring your content so that it speaks to your ideal customers' fears, like what they're afraid of happening, their intangible obstacles that they have in their head, and their actual practical problems, like their lack of knowledge or tools that they don't have at their disposal, speaking to that, and how if they did have it, what it would be like kind of articulating the hell that they're experiencing, not having your insight, and then giving a little bit of your insight, and then showing how if they had this, they would experience this type of heaven, which you articulate as what they would want for themselves. Not what you would want for them, but what they would want for themselves, right? Like, speaking to having, like, if I was talking to an executive, if that's where I'm doing my messaging with, and maybe like someone that's trying to, look better in a suit, have more confidence in meetings, get a promotion, have more energy. Like I'm not going to want to talk as much. Like, yeah, maybe a little bit on 6-pack abs. Yeah, maybe a little, but maybe a little bit on losing love handles and stuff. More so, I'm trying to speak to how he'll feel that much better at work. How when he walks in a room, he'll be able to command more presence. How his handshake's gonna get more firmer. How his posture is gonna get firmer. How he's gonna get looked at in a higher light in amongst his peers and colleagues due to these things. That messaging is gonna emotionally attach to that person. But if a stay-at-home mom that she just she is trying to lose the love handles, tone up the thighs, get the squat booty going, she's going to need more of that messaging in the content. And neither is wrong. It's just, how do you want to set your business up? So asking those questions, and that's first and foremost. So ideal client, content in alignment with ideal client. And honestly, that without even any advertising, if you just nailed that, you can crack 10K a month easily. I remember I was doing 15, 20, 25K months with zero ads. I'd spend zero money on marketing. It would just be from the social media outreach kind of thing. So yeah.
So my question there is, and I've seen people pitching this kind of thing, like the high ticket coaching type of model, right? But then there's professional bodybuilding coaches, really high, really high caliber guys that are very well known in the industry, who are only charging $150, $200 a month, kind of for their services, right? So would you say that you're just are ignoring that those guys exist, and you're just my service is much more personalized? Because how do you feel, even with your pedigree, having had competed, been a sponsored athlete and stuff like that, how do you feel you are able to position yourself at a higher price point than somebody with 25 years experience, kind of thing?
Oh, great question, right? So it goes back to the ideal client, right? So I didn't position myself as a competition prep coach, right? And one of my major selling points on my coaching was dude, you can go and hire the guy that's $250 a month or $200 a month or whatnot. You're going to get a diet that they wrote on the notes section of their phone 8 to 12 months ago that they're going to copy and paste to you. Then you're going to send them pictures, and you'll be lucky to get a response every week, right? And you're going to have to track them down for this. That's what you're going to get when you pay for that. And you know what? If you are a competitor and you're looking for just direct insight and just for someone to tweak your macros and just to not have any really face-to-face conversation, maybe a phone call here and there if you're lucky, text message, eat this food, send me pictures, and then, we'll take a quarter cup of rice off meal 6 and meal 4. And let's add half an avocado instead. If that's what you want, then great. That's not what I do, right? So again, I would always be stressing to people, because I'm the lifestyle guy. I'm the guy that's like eating out, having a good time, you know, living life and looking super fit and talking about like, here's all the technicalities. Like because I had such a, you know, good knowledge and understanding on, you know, how food reacts in the body and all the different combinations of it. And I would actually be living my truth on social media, like people, because, you know, before they hop into your, you know, like DMs or apply for your coaching, they probably are going to look through your page for a while, right? And go through, like, you know, I had my Instagram highlights of my testimonials there. You can see people's transformations. You can see the time span. You can see how I'm eating. I had another one about, like, you know, my philosophies and my thought process. Like, you know, Olympia prep coaches and stuff like that are not doing that, right? They're posting their athletes and their wins. Good for them. They're making a great amount of money because they've got, you know, 100, 200 clients paying them 150, 200 bucks a month also, right? It's just a completely different level of coaching. I was taking people through a transformation, right? Like taking people, like equipping people with the information that they need to build the type of body they need. Like I'd be on the consultation call with them when they'd apply, and I would be like, all right, look, do you see how, like, I would pull up in, and I had like my own app that had all the workouts on the app and a demonstrational video doing it. The meal plan is on the app in a nice WordPress document, you know, with everything, carbs, fats, you know, everything super professional, right? And I would go, and then they would do their check-in pictures on the app. It's more prestigious, more official, right? It's like, oh, okay. It's like, this is actual 6-figure coaching business you're happening on over here, right?
Gotcha.
So having the packaging and professionalism set up, of course, but I was over here, I would be pulling up clients. I would do a 2-call process. I remember, and I'm just kind of throwing off information in my head right now. But I would do a 2-call process. The first call, I'd figure out what their needs are, who they are, what they want, what their goals are, right? And then I'd figure out if we're a good fit. And then that would be 30 minutes on the phone. I'd take a whole bunch of notes, what they need, what's going on, where they're experiencing resistance, what they've tried that's not working, what's going on, like what they need, what their relationship with food is like, you know, just personalized stuff. And I'd ask questions about like their personal life too. And like, you know, because that matters when you're making a plan for somebody. If they have kids, they go, you know, what they do, they're doing their walking their dog in the morning and this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We can tack that on for your cardio. Instead of it being 40 minutes, it'll be like 30 after. If you're doing that, why don't you drop down to do some, you know, like 10 burpees while he's taking a shit. And then, you know, we can make that into like a little hit cardio in the morning, like getting really deep with people, right? So, you know, I'm really, really good connecting with people, and I would connect with them, right? I would let them know, like, hey, like, I really got your back on this, and I'm really invested into what's going on in your life as it relates to these goals. And I would have all the reasons and examples of why people weren't successful, and all the reasons why people weren't successful are also the same reasons why they were having a hard time too. So they're like, oh wow, Akaash really gets me, right? Now, if I'm saying that pretty much, you know, you got 24/7 access to me, text me anytime, we do voice messages, we got weekly calls over Zoom where I'm assessing their physique. I'm like, hey, see how you've been doing the whole program? See how your back 2 weeks ago was here? You see how we improved these new workouts? You can see the thickness starting to come over here. And like, see how like you haven't lost any weight at all on the scale, but you see how your abs popped out more? See, because we add these supplements, your muscles. So I'm helping them understand what's happening in their body. That's priceless. So if you position yourself properly, right, it's all perceived value, right? You have to think, like, what is your sales process, right? How are you positioning yourself in the marketplace? Yes, it's perceived value. You better have value too, or your reputation will go to shit. Don't get me wrong. But when you're portraying your business out into the marketplace, it's all perceived value. So when they're on the second call with me, I'm screen sharing with them it's not a phone call, it's Zoom. I'm screen sharing with them my back office, you know, showing them other people's, you know, meal plans. Like, hey, these are some adjustments that, you know, one of my, you know, clients, George, just made right now. This is kind of some stuff you can expect on your route. And this is all before they pay me, right? This is all front end, heavy investment. And then if I'm saying it's $1,500 up front and you're getting a $500 supplement credit, and I would throw that in there as well with it, right? If they pay up front or something like that, if they do the whole thing. If they don't, it's to be like a $250 supplement credit, right? And then so I'm saying you're getting your personalized workout programs, you're getting your personalized, you know, meal plans, tailored to your own relationship with food. I'm asking people like, hey, are you like a couple cheat meal a week type of dude? Like, you want to have like maybe 2 or 3 cheat meals a week? Or are you like a whole cheat day type of person? You just want to eat whatever the fuck all day long? Or are you like a little snacker? Are you like one of those people like eat a little some little bullshit every day and stuff like? And you ask people these questions, they've never had a fitness coach ever ask them these kind of questions, right? So I'm like, okay, see, we're gonna make your plan around this. So they really feel like their psychology is being taken into account and someone understands. And I'm a foodie myself, so I can that like they can feel it off me like I really get it. So they would rather work with that person versus the coach that's going to text them something they wrote in the notes section or just copy and paste it to somebody and then, hey, let's go ahead and subtract 20 grams of carbs today. And
Dude, I mean,
yeah,
I just had a breakthrough as you're talking. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. And that is exactly what I've been doing, but I've just been charging people the price of like, the cheap guys would charge because they're working at scale, but I'm not working at scale because I'm new and I think that I have to charge a low price in order to get transformations. And what a lot of people say is you want to work with some people for free to get transformations, but I'm like, I'm not going to work for people for free because then they're not going to follow what I'm saying and they have to follow what I'm saying. But I've just been charging a very low rate and doing a very customized service because I have the time now and not enough clients where it's become overwhelming or whatever. But I think that what you're saying makes complete total sense. It's a completely different business model. And that is like the type of business model that I'm trying to do. And the other type of people have a completely different business model for competitors or whatever. I just think that what you said just completely cleared it up in my head. And I definitely need to do like a bit of an audit because I'm very like, I'm like 2 months into this and I have clients already, but they're not paying me anything for the work that I'm doing. You know what I mean?
okay.
So,
Well, hey, why don't hey, you know what, brother? Like I'll be down. I got a jet right now. I got to get out of here.
yeah, I
But
was about to
I'd
wrap
be
it
down.
up.
No, I know you were, but I would genuinely like to help you out. Just I'll definitely do I never charge for consults. I'll just consider it like a consult. If you like, we'll hop on a call, and then I definitely help you restructure your business model, get some clarity, and then definitely get some more money in the bank because you definitely have the value to give for sure.
All right, man. So I really appreciate you coming on. I think it was a great podcast. We went all the way. We went from bodybuilding to, building my business. So this is exactly perfect. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate you coming on. Like you said, we should definitely do more stuff together. I really like talking to you, bro. I love the energy and, I don't want to take too much of your time right now. I know you got to go. You're a very busy guy, but really appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks a lot. And last question, I'm trying to do a different color for every single person that comes on the podcast, like your brand color for the thumbnails and stuff like that. So what is your color that you want me to use?
Green is the first color that popped to mind. Yeah, green is the first color that came to mind. So why don't we go green?
All right, great. All right, thanks so much, man.
And then and then let's chat on the DM or text me. Let's schedule some time for next week, and then we'll talk business.
Do you have any closing message for the people watching on like where they can find you?
Yeah, guys, I'm super personable. I love interacting with everyone. Feel free to shoot me a DM anytime, answer any questions, or just say hi. That's at Akaash Aesthetics on Instagram. That's AKAASH Aesthetics on Instagram. Much love, everyone. I'm just happy to share the fruits of my life, man, with everybody. So we can all come up together.
All right, thanks so much, man.
Much love, brother.